Okay, in this first video, I'd like to show you how to install and get MPSCANDROID set up on your Android device, tablet, or phone. The first thing you'll do is download the APK file, and then you'll have to install it on your device. So here I've got it in my download folder, MPSCANDROID. You just click on it. You'll possibly get a message for the third-party software that you'll have to OK, and then hit install. I'm going to pause the video while this is installing. App is installed. You can choose to open it, and this is the main menu screen. And I'm doing these screen recordings on a 12.2-inch Samsung tablet, so you see the format is formatted more for the phone. But these are your main menu options. The grayed out blocks here are for use with the MPSCI link device, so they're grayed out right now because you might have seen the pop-up come up saying that no MPSCI link was found. The first thing you'll want to do is go to miscellaneous, and you can go to program settings. From here you can make a couple of changes that'll help you. The first being this row height, settings table row height. I'm going to go ahead and change that. Since I've got this tablet, I'm going to change the row height to 50. And I'll show you that row height in a minute. But any of the tables, when you're looking at the RAM setup or the user gauges or any of that table format, is where that setting comes into play. The default ECU, for me, I'm going to leave it on SMEC T1 because that's the ECU that I'll be using. But you can see the currently supported or will be supported ECUs. I've only tested mine on the SMEC since those are the only vehicles I've used so far. I don't have a flashable SBC, and I haven't even tried to log it yet. Connection type right now is Bluetooth, you can see in this selection. But you can use this program right now with a USB on the go cable. So you can download MPSCANDROID, get it all set up a gauge layout, and use it right now with a USB on the go cable plugged into your car, as long as you have the FTDI cable, which some of us already have from using MP-Tune and MP-Scan. So in order to use the Droid version here, the only additional item you'd need would be the USB on-the-go cable. The Bluetooth option here is for the MPSCI link is going to use Bluetooth. But you can set this up now and start using it if you're familiar with using MP-Scan. The learning curve isn't too terrible for getting this started, getting it set up. Logging rate and ECU timeout rate and these other logging setting rates right here, I'm going to leave at the default settings. You might choose to check the boxes down here for keep alive and the bright screen. They were highlighted already, but that's because I had previously installed the program. So, and the other useful change right here, well, when you download and first set up the program, I don't know if it's going to default to bold font or not, but I've selected bold there. So I'm going to back out of this and go back. Now, if you intend to log, one thing that you'll have to change is any gauges that might use different settings than what's in the RAM setup. If you have a gauge that you want to log, but you want to change how it's displayed in the log, like maximum value, displayed maximum value, like say RPM. So for some of us, we're not going to be running close to 8,000 RPM, but the RAM setup is set for 8,000 as the limit on the RPM. So that might be one that you choose to alter. Another one that you'll need to modify settings for is if you're using the wideband to narrowband conversion through a turbinator cal, you can log your wideband AFR because you're sending that 0 to 5 volt output from your gauge to the ECU directly, and the ECU has the conversion. So we'll set that up too. So I went right past it, but RPM, you can see the RPM 3D and RPM HB are set up for these values of display maximum of 8,000. That might be a gauge that you want to alter in your log if you don't want it to display 8,000. If you know you're not going to go over 6,500 or 7,000, you can change that. So your user gauge is where you would add that. And here you can see the user-defined gauges that I have already. I have backed up my folder from phone, so you can see the user gauges that I have defined on the other device that I backed up to this tablet. For analog output 4, you can see I have that set to be an AFR wideband output, and that's for my testing of the MPSCI link. I'm using one of the analog inputs on the device, taking the output from my Innovate MTXL wideband and logging the AFR. So I've changed these settings, the ECU minimum and the ECU maximum, to the ranges that are specified by the manufacturer of that device. So 7.35 is the reading at 0 volts, and 22.39 is the reading at 5 volts. And I'm displaying the same minimum and maximum in my log. So when I add a gauge, they're going to have this min and this max. So you can alter those gauge settings. You'll need to alter those gauge settings before you install a gauge on your layout. Otherwise, it will default to the information from this table. So in the next video, I'm going to show you will be how to set up a layout, how to install gauges, the different types of gauges, and making some alterations to the gauge, default gauge settings, the font, and other options that you're able to change when you configure gauges.